customers.
Item 5E, paid parking program contract and program revisions. Chief Key.
Certainly put paid parking at the end because it's a riveting subject. All right, we're going to walk through a PowerPoint. Before I make the presentation, I want to commend my staff for their hard work on this. It's been over a year since the police department's taken over as management.
Councilman Horvath?
It's been over a year since the police department took management over of the paid parking program. We've dealt with a lot of frustrated customers and a lot of quote unquote first for my staff. And I just want to commend under Commander Stuckey's leadership. I'd like to also specifically thank Detective Sergeant Torres and Detective Camacho, who are both here with me tonight in the back of the room, for their hours and hours upon they poured into making this program, the presentation tonight, and for preparing for next steps to move us in the right direction for this program. We started the presentation with over 30 slides. It's not 30 slides. We've dwindled it down to 10. The overly simplified synopsis, though, is this. We're seeking tonight to spend around $160,000 in revenue made by the program to refresh the program, which is in desperate need of a rehab, which I'll cover more in detail here soon. And then finally, before I get into the presentation, just two key points I'd like for you to keep in mind as I make the presentation tonight. The paid parking program first was established to create turnover in our downtown business district to ensure the customer base continues to revolve and that the premium parking in our business district isn't held hostage by beachgoers all day. It's actually people who are spending money in our city. And then number two, what I'd ask for you to keep in mind during this presentation is the current program is dysfunctional. That is being as honest as I possibly can, because I think if we can have an honest conversation to address the deficiencies of it, identify those deficiencies and suggest solutions to them, we can move this program into where it needs to be. It's broken, and it's broken because it was constructed incorrectly, and without any action, the program will need to be halted immediately in August for a new system to take place. That's our deadline. So the way the presentation is structured, it's where we were, it's where we are, and it's now where we're going. So with that, I'll get started. So it was established in 2019. The starting cost was around $180,000. That included some signage and kiosks in Neptune Beach. There's 59 signs in Neptune, 2 kiosks in Atlantic, 18 signs in Atlantic Beach, and the courtyard has 6. Just to refresh everyone's memory, and if you're not familiar with the program is managed by Neptune Beach, but we have a presence in the town center district area, so that incorporates Atlantic and Neptune Beach. So our paid parking ambassadors are kind of cross-jurisdictional where they cross into Atlantic and Neptune. There's 55 spaces in Atlantic Beach. Of that, 2 are handicap and 1's takeout. In Neptune Beach, we have 148 spaces, so we are predominantly the majority of the spaces, with 8 of those handicap, and the courtyard has 14. We employ 5 part-time parking ambassadors. We have 1,835 registered Neptune Beach participants in the program, and in only the last year, in 2024, we issued 17,492 citations. Pretty large number if you think about how small the area is here, the footprint. So financials, in 2024, this whole slide is just last year's financials. We had 40,000 free parking transactions. Those are either 30-minute or less, or resident parking, which I'll talk about here in a second. We grossed about $1 million. Of that gross, 900 of it was hourly payments. We only collected, this is shocking, $5,000 in citation revenue, and that's why I talk about it's dysfunctional. We'll address that here in a second. Because of $1 million gross revenue, we should not only have $5,000 in citation revenue. Total salaries paid, we paid about $122,000 for the parking ambassadors and $103,000 for a supervisor. The fees, around $31,000 for Flowbird, which I'll dissect what Flowbird and Parkeon are. And then in bank fees, incredible, but this is the cost of doing business, about $140,000 in bank fees. And profit, this is again part of the dysfunction, in my opinion. We only netted $220,000. Out of $1 million, the city made $220,000. So again, there's some problems that we're trying to fix. So problems identified, I'll go from top left over top right and move on this way. Excessive vendors involved. So the way the foundation was set up is you have three, they're kind of four, but we've left out the fourth one. It's redundant. You have Flowbird, who's the payment software. You have Newpark, who's the enforcement software. And you have Parkeon, who's the kiosk equipment. Way too many players in the game. And it's complex and it ends up being fragmented. So it's error prone. Last year, we had this huge issue where it affected 2,975 customers who got charged a total of 9,304 overage transactions. Now, that's not dollars, that's just the amount of overage transactions that happened. Some were by cents, some were by $1.50. So it was a very large transaction issue that happened with Flowbird. Flowbird's a disaster. I can publicly say that. Outdated software program, it's ineffective. Customer experience is horrible. People are mad at us. It's an issue. We have to fix it. And then there's no ability to support enforcement. That's what I just talked about the $5,000 in revenue from citations. You see those broken down by year. In 2022, 116. They grow. Pretty large too, growths of 116 to 153 and now at 166 in unpaid citations that are just outstanding, that no one's getting parking tickets and no one's paying for them. And there's no real plan by this Flowbird and Parkeon, or Newpark rather, to go after them. What are you doing to get our money back? Which we are going to present solutions on that as well today. So, continuing on with some of the issues, we have deteriorating inoperable kiosks. There's corrosion, namely, there's corrosion at every one of them, but namely at Limited Midway, we had to take that one completely offline. We don't even have a kiosk there anymore because it just kept getting corroded. There's one at Ahern that we threw everything at it. We just kept trying to put any component we possibly could, and it just kept malfunctioning. I skipped over replacements. This one infuriated me when I learned about this, and I'm sure it'll not only infuriate this council, but everybody in the city. We bought the kiosks when we started in 2019, and they were already a discontinued unit. So we got them on a super cheap deal, but then we didn't have any plan for longevity to say, oh, well, if one of them breaks, oh, well, the parts are discontinued. So again, it may have sounded like a sweetheart deal at the time in 2019 to buy these things on the cheap, but it was like buying a used model with no parts available. And here's where we are today. And then this is kind of appalling as well. Our parking ambassadors, God bless them, they're amazing, dedicated people, and I'll venture off script here. The only reason this parking program has continued is because of the dedicated staff. The partners that we've aligned ourselves with for vendors have been not the greatest vendors. The reason we still have a paid parking program is because the people that stand behind me and the parking ambassadors out there, they're using their own credit cards to test the system with completing a $1 transaction to see if they're working when they're fixing the kiosk. So again, I found out about that. I was appalled, and we're working to make sure that the petty cash can go right back into the accounting process to make them whole. All right, so there's insufficient signage. The QR codes don't work. There's flawed application software leading to frustrated and a massive amount of administrative burden. On any given day, it takes up a staff's time, a considerable amount of staff's time to just field phone calls. I know City Hall is probably tired of fielding phone calls from people who are frustrated with our system. We're not offering a system that works correctly. And then there's some similarity issues with kiosks at private lots, that they look the same as the city's kiosks. And I know, I'm sure everyone in the room's probably heard of this or experienced themselves, where they pay at a city kiosk, but they park at a private lot, and they get them confused, especially given the Lemon Street lot is the one really that namely causes us issues. That there's two kiosks on opposing corners at Second and Lemon, and if you pay at the wrong one and you park at the wrong place, you're going to get towed because it's a private lot. And we're not towing necessarily from the paid parking program, but obviously private citizen or private business owners have the right to tow out of their own lot. Oh, before I begin, All right, everybody loves a PowerPoint, but everybody also loves like actual visuals. So we field hundreds of these phone calls monthly. I found one that if on a scale, if it was 1 to 10, 10 being like profanity laced, horrible, couldn't use this in a public forum. These are both like 5s. They're both moderate, but they both give you guys all a great idea of how frustrating our customer base is, that they're trying to park here. They want to come visit our town center. They want to come use our parking. They want to come and visit our residents, our businesses, but they're just frustrated with what we have. Kevin, can you play number 1?
Chief Key, I hope that this is not going to be me talking to the towing company when my car got towed last year.
It won't be, no ma'am. I think you have the volume muted from earlier, maybe?
Because it's coming out of here.
You might have to pause it and replay it.
And it's unusable. So tempted to pay the citation, just tear it down. I'll build you a new website. Jesus Christ.
You can just start it from the beginning. I think it's impactful. Yeah, number 1. I know it's kind of hard.
Start it over.
Yeah.
Where's my mouse?
It's up on the screen.
Did you call that guy about getting us a new website for free, by the way?
Cannot pay this online. Whoever you guys had develop your payment portal, you guys should get your freaking money back. It's so terribly developed. The CAPTCHA is horribly broken. It's unusable. So tempted to pay the citation, just tear it down. I'll build you a new website. Jesus Christ.
Now, number 2, if you will.
I'm going to dispute this because your app is impossible to navigate. Impossible. I sat here for 10 minutes trying to figure out how to pay for whatever 30 minutes, and I couldn't figure it out. And I am very frustrated that you cannot make an app that is user-friendly, because I don't have an issue paying for parking, but I have an issue with Flowbird and the fact that it is user-unfriendly. I would like to dispute this, and I think that you should waive it, because I sat here and tried to figure it out, and I couldn't figure it out. So,
And again, those are, the moderate ones. We get the profanity-laced ones as well, but it really does give a good snapshot of just how frustrated people are. And again, it's not a city. We're the ones that hire the people to do the work, and those are the ones that they're frustrated with, but we're the ones managing it, and ultimately that's what we've discovered. All right, so some current partnerships. This isn't necessarily up for decision tonight. It's just an overview of what I wanted to bring to your attention, because this is something that will need to be readdressed at a later time. So the Atlantic Beach mutual aid agreement that we have with them, they receive 70% of the revenue generated in spaces in Atlantic Beach, which I personally think is a horrible deal. I don't think we should be at 70%. They do nothing. They just let us manage their parking, and then they just sit back and collect paychecks. And it's no slight on Atlantic Beach. We love our neighbors, but it is really a bad deal, in my opinion, for Neptune Beach. In or fiscal year 21, 22, we gave them 116, 126, and 109, with totaling revenue of $351,000 from Atlantic Beach for them to literally not do anything, just to let us manage their paid parking spots. This one on the right's a little bit better example of a more equitable agreement. It's only 15 spaces, but it's a revenue split of 50-50. That's the lot directly across the street here to the south. And you can see there's even terms that are even advantageous for the city, that if a parking permit's issued, the money comes out of their end, not ours. So again, it's got a little bit better terms. But Atlantic Beach is, all these contracts are all up. They can all be renegotiated. Again, that's not where we're at right now, and I'll talk a little bit more about why I don't think we're there yet, about renegotiating our current partnerships, but that's the agreement. So updated pricing. So current is on your left, proposed is on your right. I'm going to step out of bounds on this one a little bit further too. This was suggested by our staff, but after having time more to reflect on it, I think it should be far higher, actually. We did a cost analysis throughout anywhere we could find paid parking. And we didn't, go every single one, but if you know anything about traveling the state of Florida, any beach community has paid parking all up and down the coastal sea line. And if you go from Pompano to Savannah, there's no consistency with paid parking hourly fees. They're all over the place. It's really what your market and how much people are willing to pay is what you should set your pricing at. I believe in the Disney model of set it as high as you can once and then let it ride for a while. I think we should probably do $5 increments and just set it. It's $5. $5 every hour. And the reason I say that, again, that's contradictory to what you're seeing here, but if you're going to go to Mezzaluna and it's date night by our staff, but after having time more to reflect on it, and it's a date night, and you go out for an appetizer and 2 entrees and a glass of wine, and et cetera, you're going to spend $200. What's $10 for an hour and a half, 2 hours of parking time? Again, we'll talk about this in a second, but this is free for residents as well, so that's still in there. And again, one more capstone note on this: the proposed pricing. It's all fluid. It'll all be changed if you have strong input. I'm here to take any recommendations you have on the pricing, but the pricing for the current pricing has to change. I mean, it's not working number-wise. So there's a current contract expiring. T2 is who we're asking to go to. The August 31st is basically, we got to make a decision. We have to get a vendor in here and drop these current ones because we're all out of contract with all the various contract vendors that we have. And here's some of the advantages of T2. T2 has over 50 municipalities in Florida. They're a well-known vendor in this market. There's no app necessary. That was a huge complaint from us. So if you're a private resident that lives in Jacksonville and comes out to visit Mezzaluna or whatever, I hate to keep giving them shout-outs, my favorite restaurant. So you go to Neptune Beach, you pull out your phone, you got to download an app right now at the App Store or whatever. This system, it's web-based, which is nice because you don't have to wait, and it sends you to a web browser. It doesn't sell or share any data. There's fully customized online patron portal, it's self-management of permits, there's a self-service violation, dispute, appeals, account management, more. We've done some digging on them, and from our experience, the customer experience of user interface, if you will, is far superior than anything we've seen so far. There's a single project manager with T2 that'll help oversee all of the deployment. And then this is the big one, is T2 citation collection already is established with the collection agency. They're non-confrontational, but you don't pay your ticket anymore in Neptune Beach. It's not just, don't worry about it, keep getting tickets, and we're just never gonna do anything about it. You're actually gonna get sent to a collections agency. They add a fee on top. That's their model with a lot of collections agencies. So if your parking ticket's $25, they add it, whatever the service fee is, say 10, that's not it, I'm just throwing numbers. We collect our 25 directly back. They have the extra 10 for the person who chose not to pay the citation, and all the revenue is collected back. So the last slide here is a proposed contract. The left is replacing kiosks. That's a bulk of the money. It's about $80,000 to replace 10 kiosks. They're all new hardware, though. They're the latest state-of-the-art ones that are user-friendly. There's some cost savings already going to be realized. Right now on Flowbird, we're paying $31,000. The proposal is for the T2. It would be $13,000 for the actual software. The annual software fees to run the program. There's a new park, we're paying $39, and T2, we'd only pay $13. So the ask there is year one, our cost would be $137, year two being $23, and that gets you to around the $160,000 mark to refresh the program. And again, just there's a little footnote there. It was $180,000 in 2019 to actually get this thing going. This is another slide that it's kind of just looks like the same, but it kind of breaks those savings down a little bit more of an annual savings where we're currently at, which again, it's kind of misleading, I'll say, because we're currently at something that's about to end. But if we did this right now, in hypothetically speaking, they would continue to let us operate on this dysfunctional platform forever, and it's not going to end August. We would realize a savings of $42,000. I have a couple other things that are not on this PowerPoint that I wanted to make mention of before I take questions. Neptune Beach has 18,000 registered for free, as I mentioned earlier. Atlantic Beach has 4,400. So we have 1,800, they have 4,400. They far exceed our registered free people. Neptune Beach residents can park anywhere in Neptune Beach for free for 3 hours. Same with Atlantic Beach and Atlantic Beach spots. And I guess I was involved in 2019 on the setup, but the mindset there was we don't want maybe Atlantic Beach coming to take over Neptune Beach free parking. We derived at the financials, just a footnote here, by sending a list of questions to the finance department. They don't perfectly add up. Again, if somebody starts to check this, I wanted to make sure I addressed it. I would assume they're unaudited numbers. Per Jaime, there's $900K available in the revenue fund to spend this $160,000. There's plenty of money to refresh our program in revenues we've had since 2019. The citations for paid parking are around $25. If you were to get issued a citation for like anywhere else outside the business district by an officer, they're $35. However, the municipal ordinance reads that we can increase that as long as we bring that to the awareness of council up to 50, which that's my plan, unless I hear obviously strong opposition. The contract will be procured through a Sourcewell government contract executed by our city manager and city attorney, who the city attorneys and I have been discussions and reviewed this and approved it. The Sourcewell is the same thing as Daryl earlier said. There's a lot of consortiums of government contracts that's a Sourcewell contract. And lastly, I'll end in saying we're exploring expanding the program, and I'm interested in expanding the program, and I think there is some expansion, be it increasing the parking tickets or whatever, but I just can't do that with a broken system. I need a system that works, then we can expand the system. So I'd be happy to take any questions, and like I said, I kind of brought the resident experts with me here as well.
All right, I have some questions. Will residents, and I think you already said this, will residents still have 3 hours free?
Yes.
Okay. And then, so you said a big number, 18,000 registered for free. Our population is-
1,800.
Oh, you said 1,800?
I may have misspoke, but
Okay.
yes, the PowerPoint did say 18.
Well, thank goodness, because I was thinking 18,000. Wow, we need to make people re-register more frequently. Okay,
Right.
good. Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, 1835, 1,835, which it does, that, to your point, it does speak to, we probably need to get a message out better. Our messaging is probably weak, and we need to make sure that we tell our residents, you can come to our town center and pay and get free parking for 3 hours.
Absolutely, and I will say that people ask me about our parking from all areas of Duval County when I'm out and about, and I tell them, listen, just go to the kiosk. We've done it all different ways in my family. We're registered, but sometimes we just pay. I didn't know we had free parking in Atlantic Beach, so I was paying if I parked on
we
the
don't
other
have- we
side.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh,
Our
well.
arrangement, which again,
Okay.
it's open and it's up for debate at a future meeting. We can change the terms of that. We're out of contract.
Okay, good.
With the MOU with them.
Well, then I wasn't being silly by paying. Okay, and then, do you know what are the rates in Jacksonville Beach, and, how would our proposed rates compare with theirs?
I don't know Jacksonville. Do you know Jacksonville Beach? I don't know.
Okay.
Not off the top of our head. We did look at a ton of them, but they all kind of start blending in when you start looking at all the various rates.
Okay, those are my questions.
And I will say this, I'll be careful and choose my words carefully, but the experience that we're trying to create in Neptune Beach is a Neptune Beach experience, and I'll leave it at that.
Yes. Okay. Anyone else?
Sure. I know we spoke earlier, I know you've been working on this a long time. I appreciate your efforts. I appreciate you bringing forward not only a problem, but a proposed solution. So thank you for that. I'm all for, investing in our city, especially if it's going to generate more revenue. Couple questions would be, the replacing the kiosk, the 10 kiosks, does that include AB's kiosks?
It does. I had a map, but I took it out of the 32 slide. It was just too much. It showed where every one of them were, and I think, are they two in Atlantic Beach? Yeah. 2 kiosks, and
Do you
because
think
it's a par program, so yeah.
So you don't think it's appropriate for them to pay for that, you would say?
Oh, I absolutely do. I mean, I think our agreement is
Well, and you
definitely needs to get renegotiated.
You said that on the 70-30, and I'm kind of curious, what would you propose on that?
I mean, at minimum, I think our starting point should be 50-50 cost sharing, but I think that may even be too liberal because, again, if you look at the numbers of parking space, and that's why I asked them to put this in there, we're at 150, they're at 50.
Yeah.
So we have far, far more.
Do we run the risk of them just saying no and then losing that revenue source when we already have, the systems in place to generate that revenue?
Great question. I should have added that in there. They did set up their own parking program. It's only at the 18th Street, I believe, and there may be another place, but the 18th Street is their parking program. They may, if approached saying, hey, this is a bad deal for us, we've explored this, fine, we'll treat the line of the jurisdictional line, and then we potentially lose those.
Because I'm all for getting more money, don't get me wrong, but I don't want us to lose control of the town center either and the potential revenue from it. That's my only thing I would point out, I guess, something to be cognizant of. What, $144,000 in bank fees?
It's a lot.
What
Credit card transactions.
the fee, 3% or whatever?
And, $1 million in revenue,
Okay.
144.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking, and I know you're not the CPA on this. We made 200,000. The expenses I see, I don't see $800,000 in expenses. I'm just curious where the.
Yeah, and I've tried really hard to do this. Okay, so this is full transparency. This is how it happened. We wanted to start to refresh this thing. We knew there were going to be a lot of questions, especially about the financials. Yeah. We created, during command staff meetings, a whole list of this long list of questions, sent it over to finance, got the questions answered back. And I've gone through it and tried to make the math. It doesn't necessarily math with accounting. And I can't offer an explanation for that, but I can tell you. So if you start at $1 million in revenue, and we're going to start subtracting stuff, right? So we have 122 for parking ambassador, 103 for supervisor salary, 38, call it 38 for Flowbird and Parkeon, 144 for bank fees.
350.
Sorry, if you slow me down if I need to.
No, I was saying 350. I was adding it up.
Yep, 220 for our costs. We're trying to go for that $1 million number. 100. Got one more. 166 for unpaid parking citations. Is that? No, that number's not. Sorry. Hold on. Yeah, it would come out of the million. Yep, it would come out of the million. So 166. I think my best I was able to get to is like 800.
Okay, fair enough.
I mathed it as hard as I could.
No, I get it. I appreciate it. I was just curious.
And to your point about Atlantic Beach too, not to go back to that, they're good partners. I don't want to stand here and say, like cry that we're in such a bad place. They're good partners. They've always been great partners. It's just, do all the work.
I get it. I get it. I also just don't want to lose that.
For sure.
Especially if we're increasing fees.
Yeah, and increasing fees would be a conversation that Atlantic Beach would definitely want to be a part of, to have a say-so in.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, I wanted to get a little more detail on the bank fees too, because it's like 14%. I would have expected it to be more like 3%. So I don't know if is that a function of the agreement that we have with one of these software providers they're providing financial services to? Is that?
It is, and I should have prefaced, I'm glad this discussion's coming up, because these are the 2024 bank fees, because we're having all these people's hands in the pot. I would strongly predict that number would come drastically down because we're only moving to one vendor. And if you like, I can absolutely get what the expected bank fees with T2 would be, and then we could look at a number, and ultimately we already know a benchmark that we're going to make at least $1 million, most likely, if everybody keeps coming out here to visit us, and extrapolate a percentage out of that.
And then, so for people that have an enormous amount, I guess, of people that just don't pay the tickets, right? Would we, if we like found them, would you tow them? I mean, what would happen to these people that just blow it off like forever?
So let me answer one question at a time. Do we know anything about bank fees currently in what their percentage would be?
For T2?
Correct.
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. We'll get that for you, for everybody. And then My understanding is we have 400 and something, we have $500,000 outstanding in citations. T2 is absorbing that, and they're going after all the unpaid citations.
That's a discussion that we need to have if we want to start over or go after everybody that's been unpaid right now.
So prospectively, they're going to take the collections risk?
That would be the goal, is to go back at least to a benchmark 3 years and say, hey, if you have an outstanding citation from 3 years ago, and they have a mechanism to actually, because we don't have a mechanism right now other than putting a boot, and we have one boot for 40,000 transactions. It's not going to work.
The other comment I had on the proposal is if we are out of contract with AB and we are talking about replacing their kiosk, maybe it makes sense to try to expedite getting that updated memorandum of understanding with them before we, invest in those kiosks. If theoretically the next day they could just say, yank them, we're going to do our own thing. So
Another great point. A lot of good discussion points. I was a proponent of let's remove the kiosks. They're too expensive. They're a infrastructure, hardware piece that is prone to failure. They're just another source of friction in a whole program. I've since kind of come a little softer to that because you have to understand that there's an age range that is not comfortable with using their cell phones. So we have to have some kiosks. The parking program people obviously they're gonna argue that kiosks are like a price of doing business and important for your customer base. I've traveled to Savannah and Charleston like everybody else probably has and experienced parking kiosks and be like, okay. Initially, I thought, hey, let's dwindle this thing down. It'll really cost a lot less, and I would be okay with that. I've heard, to your point, sir, that Atlantic Beach would probably have a rub with that they want their kiosks. That maybe that stance has changed with leadership, but
well, I didn't necessarily, just to clarify, I wasn't necessarily saying not to do the kiosk. I was more saying that if we're out of contract, like we don't have any agreement, and theoretically tomorrow we could spend some money on kiosks, we would install them, as least as I understand, in Atlantic Beach, and then literally the next day they could say, we're taking over parking in our area.
That's a great point.
Yank your kiosk. So I'm just saying maybe it makes sense before we invest in that to expedite getting this MOU signed with them too, so we know that.
And maybe what I suggest that just for time purposes, we maybe even explore going with some and not all. There's a kiosk on every corner. If you look at the map, basically, it's gridded out where there's kiosks everywhere. And we've got to get a contract going and signed with T2 to have services, because ultimately we have a timeline that we could turn the lights off on it, no problem, and bag the current infrastructure and then just come back, and that's a possibility as well. So just
the one other thing I had, I think it's great if no Neptune Beach residents are paying the fees to charge more. That way it's easier theoretically for our residents to park, provided they're registered. Do we have a policy though, like for a Neptune Beach resident, if they got a citation to get that waived if somebody didn't know or for whatever reason they went and parked? I guess I don't know what our policy is on that. I think one time I might have mistakenly used the kiosk or didn't use it right, and they left me a note. It was like a courtesy note. And I just didn't know what our policy is on that, because I would favor increasing it, but I would also favor making sure we have lots of leniency for people that really live here.
So we absolutely, our posture and our policy is heavily focused on citizens and voiding citations if they present any type of issue that they had. We void, could we throw a ballpark number out of how many we?
I think we've voided 1,000 since November.
We void a lot of tickets. But again, that may change because T2 would actually be a competent vendor. And when you have somebody who, on the voicemail leaves you that, they're right. They're right. So yeah, let's void it. So to answer your question, yeah, our posture is very much so, let's void them if they present an issue. But everything's open. If the council says, hey, let's give that resident 6 hours, I don't necessarily care. I just, I want the residents to have the advantage, and the people who are coming into the city that are not residents to pay their, like everybody else at a beach.
Agreed.
And I think it's a good thing you pointed out that T2 would retroactively go after them, because, that fund's right there. Even if they get 50%, I don't know what percent we get or what their fee is, but, if we got 50% of that, that would pay for what we're talking about today.
That's a great point.
as far as fees.
When do you, this is up for vote tonight, but I'm sensing some questions. So I guess my next question based on that is, would it hurt you if we deferred on this to June? Because I know that we are up against a deadline. How long will it take T2 to implement everything for us to not have a lag?
It would. We're already past that point. We really are, quite honestly. And the point we're at now is we explored like a gap insurance kind of like a proposal to say, hey, like charge us, what would it look like to charge us just to get us a little bit, we're even past that. My fear with engaging Atlantic Beach, and to Councilman Rogers' point, it's valid and it needs to be determined. And I would even be willing to say, hey, let's move that 10 down to 8. And we can strategically, we're only at 9 right now, because remember, Lemon Street's not even there anymore, it's gone. So we currently only have really 9. If we bumped it down to just 8, and say hypothetically, as the councilman said, they said, hey, we're out because we don't like the terms, we could reposition the kiosks in our city and still be completely at a neutral. But the urgency's there if we want to continue the parking program. And if everybody's okay with saying, hey, we're going to turn the lights off for a couple months, then maybe that's the alternative, unfortunately, is where we're at, just because of we've come and how long it's come to kind of dig ourselves out of this mess that the parking program was.
Sure. And the MOU with Atlantic Beach, I think that there are other things to consider that maybe everybody doesn't know yet. Mr. Pike, we missed the city manager's report where we were going to talk about another issue with Atlantic Beach. And so he'll get up after Chief Key is done. But I think that the MOU with Atlantic Beach is something that needs to be revisited, but maybe not immediately. Does anybody else
Just
have any
real
questions?
quick follow-up on that.
That's okay.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I mean, when he's ready. I just wanted the way it's presented, Chief, is, I guess, the software costs are different. The kiosk costs, we'd have that as a new cost. The enforcement costs with our staff, is everything else essentially the same? Because normally, I guess what I would kind of want to see almost like a mini pro forma on this enterprise to show all the costs, last year and then all the costs, forecasted this year's. But I guess I'm taking from this representation that the only thing that's really changing operationally is like the software costs essentially and the other terms that you mentioned. But our staff, we still need the same amount of staff. And so, okay.
And infrastructure. A refresh of infrastructure. And Commander got a really great point. So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I would eventually like to explore or offer to this council to explore paid parking down First Street. That's in the future, and I would not want to even entertain that as a recommendation until we fix where we're at right now. But ultimately, the same deal, right? If you're frustrated and you're a resident who lives on the west side of the city and you come and you can't find anywhere on First Street to go to the beach, maybe we do create some turnover there and people don't lock in their spaces. But with the understanding, again, that there's constant, the focus on citizens first, or residents first. So to your point, say Atlantic Beach bails, we're stuck with worst case 10, there's always an opportunity potentially to expand our program down First Street and have kiosks that we are now +2 to a program that may have another +10 or something. So just, there's a lot moving there.
Okay, Ms. Livingston.
The one thing I just wanted to, since we're talking about kiosks and like the potential for the future, because what I was going to bring up is just like to see if there was any data and like how many people use these kiosks rather than what seems like now would be a better program than the app. Because it's my understanding the kiosk, I mean, like you put your thing in and it prints out something, you don't even need that printout anyways.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's kind of just wasting resources. Personally, like I'm okay moving forward, but I would kind of like to see us scale back even more than what you're suggesting on the kiosks. And just, I mean, like you said, they're on every corner and just save some money there because especially like my concern, and I've had these conversations about paid parking on First over the years with residents. And I agree, I think it would be a great idea to make additional funding, but I would hate to be that person living on First Street with a kiosk, like in front of my house. So I think that whatever we could do to try and tighten up the program without using the kiosk so that maybe when we go down First Street, we're not looking at putting kiosks everywhere. I think that, like, that would be something I would want to explore more.
So before I share statistics on kiosk usage, I want to add a caveat that the web or the app is broken. It's horrible. So that's going to skew statistics completely, because if you go to try to use the app and the app doesn't work, you can get frustrated that you can't use it and then go to the kiosk. So our kiosk usage numbers are dramatically higher than maybe what I would expect. And when I first learned them, I was kind of shocked too. But then you start kind of realizing what statistics didn't necessarily mean in this case. Do you remember those off the top of your
It's about 60-40.
60.
Well, I would say too, though, I mean, the fact, because we have them literally, like, you get out of your car and you're like, which one's closer? Here's 5, that it's easier than being like, do I have the app? Do I want to deal with this? To just
Right.
go up and, you're done. Like, I use the kiosk because I don't feel like you downloading that app. But if there was just an easier website and my only option was doing that, I mean, other than walking maybe a block further, I would be more prone to, using the system that works better than what we had.
We explored, let's get one app or one kiosk, put it right at City Hall, right in the heart of our town center. Everything else is an app. And if you can't, you're going to come this way most likely anyways, if you're parking out there in the peripherals. So if you can't figure out the app, but then you start running into, okay, the internet's down, there's just there's considerations.
If we limit it to I'm not even throwing I don't know, 5 instead of the 8 or something like that, just to see, I mean, is it going to affect the contract then to just purchase them later? I mean, is it at a higher cost or anything? Or can we just, if we go 6 months and we're seeing so many issues because we need more kiosks, let's just purchase 2 more, whatever that is.
I'm 100% for 5 kiosks. I love that idea.
I mean, even less, I just threw out a number, whatever you would suggest would be reasonable.
I doubt that we probably have that information firm to say in 6 months we can go back and get the exact same cost.
Right, because right now I think we're getting about 50%, 50% off the kiosks.
To get it in bulk like that?
What we're getting now, we're getting about 50% off each.
No.
I also wonder that if we have less kiosks, or if it's a longer walk to and from a kiosk, if we might have ADA issues. Because a lot of the people who use kiosks are elderly and probably disabled. So, I mean, I appreciate the argument for less kiosks. I hate a kiosk. But I think that we need to think about, people who are disabled and elderly.
There's lines at kiosks. I see them out my window.
And our contract is what it is right now. If we're going to move forward with it right now, then maybe that would be a consideration for in the future. Just knowing that every 6 years we're going to be redoing this.
Refreshing. Yeah.
And then there was talk about the app. Is it an app or is it a QR code?
It is whether it's a QR code or whether it is however you get to it, it's a web browser. It is not an app. You don't have to go to the Google Play Store and download it.
It's a text. It's a text. You send a text number,
yep.
and it takes you straight to the web browser. There's nothing to download.
Okay. So it's a QR code. So you go to the QR code, it takes you to the website, then they send you a text, and then you're done. So really, there's no app at all. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I got that.
Which was a huge complaint.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So does anybody else? Mr. Horvath, do you have any questions?
No, I mean, I'm comfortable. I don't want to put this on pause, I guess is what I was going to say, so I don't know what we have to
Right.
state.
So the recommendation is approval of Sourcewell T2 contract and program revisions. Do we have a motion to approve the contract of Sourcewell T2 contract and program revisions?
Said motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Horvath,
Yes.
Councilor Rogers,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Livingston,
Yes.
Mayor Byland.
Yes. All right. Thank you,
Thank you.
Chief Key. And with that, we're going to adjourn the special meeting, and we're going to move on to the workshop committee,